Today I want to read one verse from Psalm 127, verse 1. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. And it's kind of an interesting concept in those verses because you think, well, unless the Lord builds the house, I don't generally see God with a hammer and nails actually physically building the house. Unless the Lord guards the city, we don't generally see God walking along the city walls ready to alert someone. So obviously there is some part in this for human beings. But I think the key to the verse is unless God is in that project, unless we are relying on him rather than just ourselves, we're laboring in vain. And so unless the Lord builds the house, unless we are, particularly as we think of it, not as a physical building, but as a home, unless we're following God's principles, unless we're allowing the Holy Spirit to be part of our family, if we're listening to his voice, if we're in his word, then there's success. When we are trying to just do things on our own, work things out on our own, be as diligent as we can possibly be, but relying on our own wisdom and our own strength, that's when we run into trouble. And the same way with the watchman on the city walls. The watchman can keep awake. The watchman can keep looking. But there are so many things that are out of the watchman's control that unless the Lord is the one guarding that city, unless the Lord is the one giving that protection, the watchman can do everything that he can do, but he can't do everything. And so I think that's good for us to remember as we go throughout our day. The next verse says this, and probably the first part of this verse is something that every teenager should memorize. It says, "It is vain for you to rise up early, to retire late, to eat the bread of painful labors, for he, God, gives to his beloved even in his sleep." Many a teenager, I think, has said, it's useless to get up early. Many a parent has said, it's useless to retire late. But the point there is, again, it's not in our own strength. It's not by the fact that we get up really early, that we work really hard, that we stay up really late, that our labor is painful. It's God's generous graciousness to us. And the reminder there from the psalmist is that God gives to us even when we are sleeping. He benefits us even when we're asleep, even when we're incapacitated, even when we're at our wits' end. And so let's go through today recognizing God's presence in our lives and relying on his provision for our lives and trusting in his protection for our lives. Let's do everything that we can do, but let's leave to God the things that only he can do.